We'll see you.
John Hook's Newsmaker Saturday starts now.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Saturday. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. It's the principal investigative arm of the U.S. Department of Justice and a full member of the U.S. intelligence community. It has field offices scattered all across the country and here in Phoenix. And in October, Director Chris Wray named a new special agent in charge of the Phoenix field office. He's a local guy, grew up in Mesa, got his master's at NAU, was a Scottsdale police officer. Akil Davis is my guest on Newsmaker Saturday. Great to see you.
Thanks a lot for the invite, sir.
It's good to see you. So you've been on the job since October.
I have.
Settling in.
Yep.
What's the biggest challenge facing you right now?
The biggest challenge is just all the threats that are facing every other major city in the United States. So we're seeing a spike in violent crime, and as a result of that, we're seeing intense drug trafficking cases, fentanyl arrests, and the like. So really on the violent crime side of the house is one of the biggest challenges we're seeing here in Arizona.
What do you think is driving the violent crime surge? Because I know the numbers came out for 2021, and it showed 2 years in a row violent crime is up.
Violent crime is up, and we took a hard hit in the summer of 2020. That then forced law enforcement, state, local, and federal law enforcement to really take a hard look at how we enforce laws and what laws we're choosing to enforce. And because of that, there's been a spike in crimes for profit, and the extension of that is violent crime. So drug trafficking brings with it some extensive capital. There's a lot of money to be made in trafficking drugs, and extension of that is the violent crime that comes along with it.
So the border is a big problem. And I think Chris Wray, when he was before Congress, he told lawmakers last summer that the crisis at the southern border presents significant security issues. I mean, he put it right up there at the top.
And it's absolutely right. I'm going to echo what the director said. And it's not just the drugs that are coming across, but we're seeing a real threat to national security with some of our international partners and trying to combat that.
You're talking about now the organized crime part of it on the southern border.
That's correct. So organized crime is significant. Transnational organized crime is a priority for the FBI, and what's going on in the border and how we're addressing that is a priority for the FBI.
So in a perfect world, would you like to see that border really sealed up? I mean, right now we're kind of playing a cat and mouse game, and we've got amnesty stuff going on, and we've got, not amnesty, pardon me, claims of asylum. That really a lot of this is economic. It's not true asylum claims. I think it's only 15%. You see the security there on the border. Does that make the job easier, or is there still ways around this?
There's still ways around it, and it's very difficult for us, because even in those images that you're showing there, our job is to figure out who is posing a threat to the United States. And it's very difficult to do. People
are dropping their IDs right at the border. They drop their documents at the border, and then we don't really know. It's hard to vet. Is it not difficult to vet these people?
It is it's very difficult to vet them. It's very difficult to see who's good guys, bad guys. We wish we operated in a world that was as black and white as that, but as everybody knows, it is not. So our focus is really trying to figure out who is bringing across illicit drugs, who's trafficking humans across the border, and the such.
Let me ask you about these murders in Idaho. You guys got involved, the FBI got involved in this, and I've been curious about this. The delineation between the local authorities, say in Idaho, trying to solve this case, and then they call you guys in. Do they reach out to you, or do you jump in and say, you guys need help? How does it work?
Yeah, and let me first off say that was a collaborative effort between state, local, and federal agencies. Based on the established relationships we already have is how that works. So what happened there in Idaho, they know that the FBI is there to assist them in any way. And I'm sure our agents in the area offered assistance on the night that this thing started. And I'm sure that assistance was always there. At some point, we were asked for evidence response resources. At some point, our offices on the East Coast and Philadelphia division were asked to assist in certain facets of that investigation. But the FBI was in a supporting role, and it was almost like a task force addressing that violent crime.
When he starts crossing state lines, though, now it's a national deal. It is.
There are some things federally. that fall within our jurisdiction based on him fleeing the scene and the like.
We just saw a picture of his car. Were you helping with some of this data on cell phones, trying to figure out where's this guy been?
Yeah, the FBI will help the investigators kind of piece that puzzle together. Absolutely.
You don't want to give away too much, do you?
Yeah, you know, the bad guys might be watching this too. I kind of want to keep some things.
Okay, let me ask you. You guys report to the Attorney General, right?
Yes, sir.
He is ultimately your boss. Okay, so Attorney General Garland said recently, not that long ago, that white supremacists, domestic terrorism are the biggest threats to the U.S. How much time is that occupying the Phoenix field office?
You know, that's a good question. We have seen a rise in domestic terror threats nationally. We have agents here dedicated to that violation, and we have seen a spike in that violation in the terms of threats and online chatter, things like that. So it's something that here in Phoenix we're tracking. We have agents dedicated to working that every single day.
Is it safe to say that the fear is really more the lone wolf than particular groups?
Yeah, the lone wolf is, as you know, is almost impossible to prevent. The one person that's bent on committing an act of violence on their own it's almost impossible to prevent. So that is kind of, if you said what keeps you up at night, would be that scenario. Regardless of the violation, it could be a domestic terror group, or it could be a lone offender that's part of a gang.
You got in what year, Akil?
So I came into the FBI in 2005.
Okay, so at that point, would you say that the computer, the laptop, is as important to you as a weapon?
It is now. In 2005, I probably wouldn't have agreed with that statement, but definitely right now, the use of the computer and the organized criminals out there and cyber criminals, their ability to disrupt things at a local and even a national level is pretty significant.
So on balance, are we more at risk because of the computer age, or less at risk? Because it gives criminals tools, but it gives you guys tools to track as well.
We have, that's a tough question to answer, only because criminals are more capable, but so is law enforcement. Right? So I think everything kind of grew exponentially, but we have some pretty sophisticated capability out there to combat that, to keep people safe.
I think we saw some of that in this Idaho case, because we're finding out where this guy was and pings on his. I mean, this is. Would you say now, when you go to Quantico, when you train for the FBI, that a lot of this now is digital?
It is, and they spend a significant amount of time on that, and we spend a significant amount of time in recruiting qualified employees with that skill set. So we're looking for folks with cyber security, cyber backgrounds to bring into the FBI for various functions.
That's interesting, and that has kind of changed. The FBI field office, I know you've been involved in this sextortion. Describe what it is and why you're so concerned about it.
So sextortion, again, back to my point earlier, it's a crime for profit. And there's many different facets of the fraud scheme, but we've seen most recently an uptick in cyber criminals targeting teenage boys through gaming systems or social media. They will co-opt a female profile. Sometimes it's even a female at their high school or a neighboring high school, to where the teenage boys think they're communicating with a peer, a female peer. They will then ask for nude photos. The young male will then provide the photos, and then they will extort the teenage boy for money or gifts, or in fear of releasing the.
This is happening the other way as well to girls?
It is. Traditionally, it has been happening to females. We have seen a shift in the criminals' behavior in that they're targeting young males.
That isn't because they're gaming.
Because they're gaming.
So they, in other words, they think, okay, now they pose as this person, or the whole thing's up, but they say, we're going to distribute this to all your friends in your high school.
That's exactly the scheme right there. Wow. Unless you pay me, give me gift cards, give me $100, give me something, I'm going to release this to
How do you guys get in the middle of that and stop it?
It's really the young men having the courage to get their parents involved, to get school counselors involved, to not feel embarrassed. They have been the victim of a crime. In the same way, if somebody broke into your car this afternoon, you would be the victim of a crime, and we would hope you would report that. That's what we need. We need the parents to come forward if this has been reported to them, so that we can do what we do best, which is start an investigation, put the bad guys in jail.
When you're the field agent, you're the agent in charge, how long does that run last? It seems like we go through every couple of years we make a change, and you're a local guy, so it's nice to have a local guy in that job.
We do, and that depends on, there's a term in the FBI called the needs of the Bureau, and if Director Ray is watching this right now, he knows that if he needs Akil Davis back in Washington, D.C., he makes a call, and I could go.
And you're gone.
And I'm gone. But that depends on... It's got to be
great for you to be in your hometown.
It is, and it's so tough for FBI agents to get home, to get back to where they're actually from, and so the fact that I've done that makes this job even more meaningful for me. So the short answer to your question is I don't know. That depends on Director Ray and the Deputy Director of the FBI. But while I'm here, I'm going to make sure it's meaningful and impactful for the citizens of Arizona.
Attorney General Garland, back in 2021, he sent a memo to the FBI outlining what he described as a disturbing spike in harassment, threats of violence against school officials. You remember all this. And Garland then directed the FBI to hold meetings across the country to try to bring together government leaders to discuss strategies to address those threats. And this, of course, led to claims, parents saying that they were being labeled domestic terrorists. You know all of this. Did you guys hold meetings here in the Valley? Did that happen?
So I'm not aware of it. That those discussions
I wasn't either. That's
would have
why
occurred,
I asked.
Yeah, pre my tenure here in the Valley.
Okay.
But I would like to say this all comes down to the most important facet is communication. Being transparent in our communication, explaining the why behind what we're doing. And that's where we've come a long way, I think, in state, local, and federal law enforcement. We understand that folks aren't always going to agree with the why, but we are going to explain the why behind most of the decisions we make. And that's, I think, what AG Garland was trying to do there.
That's interesting, because I think you're touching on kind of the third rail right here. And this is this kind of... There's been people discussing a credibility crisis with the FBI between the Hunter Biden laptop thing, the Mar-a-Lago estate raid, former President Trump, the Capitol riot, what the FBI may have known going into that, censorship of political speech on Twitter. There is a segment, you're aware of it, in this country that thinks the FBI has got it out for them, or they're putting their thumb on the scale. How do you guys turn this around?
Yeah, I think the FBI is exactly where you need them to be at the moment. We, the Republican side of the party or the House is not always happy with the FBI, and neither is the Democratic side. That's exactly where you want your Federal Bureau of Investigation.
If everybody's mad at you, you're doing your job.
We're doing our job. We have the
That's
scales.
like journalism.
It is. We have Lady Liberty is the Lady Justice is on our badge, and she is blind for a reason. And so we can promise the American public that we will find the truth. That is what we're out here doing, is finding the truth. Director Ray had mentioned to a Quantico class that this is not the first time the FBI has been in this situation.
No.
If you look at the history of our organization, the things that we dealt with in the 70s, the things we dealt with in the 60s during the Civil Rights era, we've been through this before. It feels like it's the first time, because it might be the first time we're experiencing it collectively between citizens and law enforcement.
Does it bother you?
The credibility issue does bother me. And that is my job, to get in front of as much of the population as I can, and provide that transparency that we were talking about.
Well, this is one of the great reasons to have you on the program, you know, to talk through some of this stuff, because I think you're right about that. Finally, the Super Bowl. How much of your time right now is being dedicated, I'm talking about the agency here in Phoenix, to the Super Bowl? That is a world event. Yeah. And you've got to be constantly vigilant about threats, right?
Yeah, so the Super Bowl's probably taken up a significant amount of my time, but not just me. You know, Mike Sullivan over at Phoenix PD and our partners in Glendale and the East Valley, and really every law enforcement agency in the metro area is consumed with Super Bowl prep, safety, and security at the moment. So we all have February 12th marked off on our calendar, because we will be able to take a sigh of relief following that day. Would you go so far as to say to people who are going to the game that this is a pretty darn safe place to be on that Sunday? I absolutely would. It is extremely safe. We have a ton of resources focused on this event, as each Super Bowl does. But I would like to say this. We need the folks that are attending these events to be our eyes and ears. We have said, see something, say something, over and over and over again. I'll say it again here. If you see something, please say something.
They're your best allies.
They absolutely are.
They're your investigators.
They absolutely are.
Akil Davis, congratulations on the job. Great to have you back in the Valley.
Sir.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
You got it. When we come back on Newsmaker Saturday, we're going to talk to the city manager of Glendale, talking about the Super Bowl and how Glendale has really had a renaissance. They've turned this around after what was a rough 10-year stretch, the Coyotes and all of that. We'll talk to him coming up next on Newsmaker Saturday. Welcome back on Newsmaker Saturday. The city of Glendale is about to host its third Super Bowl, past games in 2008, 2015, and then next month. Just 10 years ago, Glendale was a city, frankly, in crisis. The Wall Street Journal had put Glendale on par with failing cities like Detroit. It had a failing bond rating. It had a nasty tenant dispute going on with the Phoenix Coyotes. Its anchor attraction at its hockey arena, there was trouble there for sure. Now, 10 years later, fast forward, Glendale has turned it around. City manager Kevin Phelps is one of the reasons why. He was hired in 2016. He's been there throughout this turnaround. Kevin Phelps is our guest this week on Newsmaker Saturday. Good to see you.
Thank you.
When you came on board, you came from the Pacific Northwest. When you looked at the landscape of Glendale, what caught your eye immediately as we've got to fix this?
One, I saw the potential, and that's really important because we had this great amount of infrastructure and opportunity. We just weren't taking advantage of it from my perspective, and so we needed to really leverage the assets that were already in play to the benefit of our community.
So with the Coyotes issue, and that's been resolved now, you had to kind of deal with that. And that's your anchor tenant of your hockey arena. That's a big deal. That's a lot of dates a year. How did you kind of wiggle your way out of that thing?
Well, I think at the end of the day, what I've kind of implore to my staff and my team is that relationships are really important. And if you pick out the right relationships to have, you can do really great things in a community. We just weren't a good match from a relationship standpoint. And so because the lease was on a year-to-year lease at their request, when we finally did all of our analysis of the vision of where we wanted to take our sports and entertainment district to, we really felt it was in the best decision for the city of Glendale and all of our merchants in that area, to part ways.
We were all, I think we were all collectively in the media kind of shocked because we're thinking that's 40 some odd dates or more a year locked in. Pretty good crowds, not always great, but pretty good. And it keeps Westgate flourishing. I was surprised you guys cut ties. I really was.
There was certainly skepticism, I think, with sports fans and with some in the media that we didn't know necessarily what we were doing in this decision. I just announced at a report to the council several weeks ago that the arena had their record revenue in the history of the arena. They exceeded ticket sale revenue by more than $10 million. So it wasn't a small bump up, it was a significant
How
bump
did you
up.
do that?
We have a great arena manager called ASM Global, which is the largest owner and operator of arenas in the world. And they had told us from the very beginning that if we could open up the dates that are not, so we're not beholden to a hockey schedule, that we'll be able to bring in a lot of other types of events that are more impactful to the merchants and to the restaurants in the area and to the revenue.
Yeah, and I think everybody was skeptical about that. We were told that at the outset, that you guys thought you could make up the ground. And everybody's kind of like, well, 40 some odd dates. Right. There's no way. You did it.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
Okay, so Glendale, it's a lot more than that because, I mean, the venue is just a small piece of your operation. What's interesting with Glendale, since the last time you guys hosted a Super Bowl, I think you're up, how many thousands of people? 25,000 people?
Yeah, we've grown about 25,000, although that hasn't...
28,000 more residents since the last Super Bowl.
And that hasn't been our focus. Is, we're not using the metric of population as how we measure how we're doing. We've really been focused...
I'm glad to hear that, actually, because a lot of Arizonans start getting concerned that they're being overrun, know.
What we've been focused on, to be honest, is job creation, because if I only could pick out one metric to determine whether we have a healthy community or not. Now, you could use a lot of different metrics. If I only could pick out one, I would use the metric of the percentage of people who both live and work in the city of Glendale, because the people who work and live in the community are more apt to volunteer, to be involved coaching soccer, maybe with their faith-based organization, because they're vested in the community. When you spend time, like my next door neighbor does, who drives to Tempe every day, spends an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, it's not that he doesn't care about our community, he doesn't have the physical time. So we have focused on job opportunities, and you know, our goal is to have 0.5 jobs for every resident, and we're going to be there within the next 2 years.
As far as the Super Bowl goes, do you think now with all these other venues, Vegas, LA, that we're not going to be looking at a 7-year, every 7 years we get one of these?
Well, there's certainly no guarantee from the NFL. I think, again, what plays in our favor is that Phoenix does mega events better than just about any place in the country, whether it be the Fiesta Bowl, the Barrett-Jackson, whether it be the Waste Management Open. We are really geared towards what it takes to pull off large mega events. I think that's a huge advantage for the region. But yes, there is more competition venue-wise. Hopefully our differentiator will be the ability to pull it off smoothly and to be able to leverage partnerships in the Valley.
Up in the Northwest, I know you were involved in the U.S. Open at Chambers Bay, so you've got experience with these big events, but with a Super Bowl, that is on a whole nother level. What's the biggest challenge putting one of these on for a city?
You know, making sure we stay in our lane and make sure we do what is needed by us by the NFL. So in the case of the city of Glendale, you know, we have a lot of responsibility on exterior security and the traffic plan. And the third biggest responsibility is approving and making sure that all of the structures that are necessary to pull off a Super Bowl are permitted on time and inspected on time, because you can't let those schedules slide, obviously. So those are our three major areas. Our challenge is just to make sure we execute those flawlessly. The NFL and the host committee here in the area are taking care of all kinds of other arrangements. So I'm not worried about FanFest in downtown Phoenix.
Right.
We're really focused on those.
Is it good for the residents of Glendale?
I believe it is. I think, you know, we're going to have people saying Glendale, Arizona. They're going to say that numerous times.
Sure.
And, you know, I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of cities that are the size of Glendale that we probably would have a hard time pointing out in a map if you're living in the Midwest or you're living somewhere else.
Interesting.
Interesting. I think Glendale, Arizona, people know where it's at. And so how do you value that when you're now leveraging this economy around experiential visitation, which is what we're really focused on? These out-of-town visitors are going to be an important segment for us to attract.
Final thing, on game day, where are you going to be?
You know, I'll probably be waiting by a phone in case they need anything.
You won't be at the game?
I don't suspect I'll be at the game. Because,
unbelievable.
Well, I'll get excited. I have a TV. I'll record it, and I'll watch it when it's done.
You'll be relieved when it's over?
Yes, sir.
Kevin Phelps, thank you. Appreciate it, and congratulations on a nice turnaround for Glendale.
Thank you.
We're back in a minute on Newsmaker Saturday.